and get one it is.
So
I'll use a hen 5 or 6 times if she's really married.
So a cock can have different hens to return to.
That's right.
Is that right?
And I think it's all about having a merry hen. If they're not married, it doesn't matter whether it's his old mate from this year, last year, or whenever. You can put a fresh hen in, provided she's happy and he's happy with it. That'll do.
So, is that one of your important little methods then, that it must be a merry hen for when the cock returns?
Well, to start with, in the season, I just put any old hen in and I didn't really pay a lot of attention. But then I cottoned on to the idea that if you've got a merry hen, that's what he's racing home for. And if he doesn't get his treat, then he's not very happy. So I actually started paying a bit more attention to the cock and the hen, and it improved their performances.
So you said that the cock sees a hen for 15 minutes in the inland races.
Yeah.
What about the channel races? How long for the channel races then?
If it's a nice easy channel race, perhaps an hour to 2 hours. But if it's a very hard channel race, 3 or 4 hours, but never overnight.
Never overnight, you always take the hens out
before
nightfall. Okay.
I think this is important because if the cock's tired and fatigued, he doesn't really know she's there properly.
No.
And he won't appreciate that he's actually had his reward until he's come round.
So when the cock does return from the race, do you put anything in the water?
Well, they have it a tot on the front, and it's warm water with garlic added, and a tiny bit of Johnson's tonic, just to replace any salt. But it's never to the recommended dosage, it's always very diluted.
So, did you say that it's hot boiling water, or...?
I always boil the kettle up, and as soon as the pigeon arrives, after he's clocked on, I don't let him have a drink for the first 10 minutes, because he's likely to gulp it down. And this is the reason the garlic's in there. One, to purify the blood, and two, that they don't like drinking it, so they won't overdrink.
So because the garlic's in the water, your pigeons sip the water then?
They have a drink and that's it. And then they might have one 10 minutes later, but they don't overdo it. But I always put warm water in. The reason being that if he's tried hard, the body functions aren't working properly and he's likely to lose body heat. So if you put warm water in, this will contribute to his fast recovery.
Yes, good idea, yeah. So forming pigeons then, Mick, I mean, how do you choose your pull bird?
Well, I've pulled a lot in the past and I've lost more than I've won. Picking a pigeon in form doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come. If it's not the right pigeon, then it doesn't matter how good a form it is. So I've been a bit more cautious with my money this year, and I've just pulled the old reliables. Anything that's new might have 30 pence or 50 pence on it in the arsenal, but that's about all.
So perhaps they're there for another season to get.
That's right. If they win on the Saturday and do really well and then prove themselves again, then I'll probably start pulling them. But I've got to have a lot of confidence in them. But it's so easy to give the money away.
So do you choose any pull birds by the way they fly around the loft?
If it's one of my old reliables and he has appeared to come into form, then I will chance my money. But it's not about putting the money on, it's about actually getting that prize and going down with a clock full of pigeons or getting one when nobody else has got one. That's what counts. The money doesn't come into it.
No, that's right. So it's good pigeons then that you've got fit by perhaps flagging around the loft, bringing them into form during the season. But
as soon as the sun came out, I found that I didn't need the flag anyway. I couldn't get them down at some stages. They would fly for an hour and a half.
Would they?
And I'd have to go to work and leave the Sputnik open and let them go in as and when they please.
I see. This is the Paul section winner then, Michael, is it?
This is the one, Stalwart Boris, when he's only 2 years old.
So that was first section I,
that's
and
right.
48th Open, was that?
That's right, yeah. 18 hours, 20 minutes flying time.
And over 5,000 pigeons?
That's right.
From 663 miles, somewhere
around?
That's
correct. Average 36 miles an hour.
Fantastic performance, Mick.
That's right.
It's a really nice looking pigeon. How many inland races did he have before he went?
I sent him to 6 inland races, and then he went to Nantes with a big national. But he'd got a bent flight at the time due to a very bad fret, which he picked up from last year. So he didn't turn up till 11 o'clock the next day, but it was a very difficult race. Then he had a week off, and then I sent him to Dorchester.
Which is what, 150 miles?
150, 160, in between. And then just before the poor race, my poor candidate dropped out, and his flight dropped out, the bent one. So So he was my #1 substitute, and he was put in as my poor pigeon.
I see. And that's the pigeon that's first section.
And that's the one that actually came, yes.
Yeah. Can I handle him, mate?
Of course you can, yes. But he's a right struggler. He's not a tame pigeon.
He is.
You can see he's not relaxed. His heart's going and his breathing's up.
Only medium size, mate, not too big.
No, I don't like big pigeons.
No. He's well on in the molt at the moment.
Yeah, 5 left to go.
Yeah. Well on in the molt then, mate.
That's right, he's got 5 flights to go. But I actually paired him up in January and run a round of eggs off him while he was on the widowhood, and then rebroke him and paired him up towards the end of February as per normal with the widowhood system. So I actually did something rather unconventional. But I actually got an extra pair of young birds out of him.
Yes, yes indeed.
But it didn't do him any detrimental effects to him.
Of course not. A couple of little fret marks, but nothing to worry about.
Battle scars.
Very short back wing, which I like to see, Mick.
Yeah.
And let's have a look at his eye. Lovely and bright. Awful eye, Mick. Nice, rich, deep colour.
Well, I don't pay any attention to the eye sign, but I do like to see nice eye that's full of life and it's looking back at you. Anything that's drab and dull, I would never buy. And I usually find I've lost racing them anyway, so.
So he's only a 2-year-old then, Mick.
That's
2 years
right.
old, 1989 pigeon. Has he won any prizes previous to Paul?
Well, he's been a good steady pigeon. As a young bird, he went to the Sartilla Young Bird National in 89, which was a holdover for 7 days, and they brought them back to Cherbourg. And he actually turned up the second day, very tired, but he tried. And then as a yearling, he went to the Nantes National race, which was a disaster, but he turned up about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, again very tired, but he'd flown his heart out. A fortnight after that, he won the Club Dorchester race by about 2.5 minutes, but he'd actually flown round for quite a while, couldn't get him in.
Yeah.
And then a fortnight later he went to St. Is, which is 500 miles, as a yearling, and he was timed on the day, flying 12 hours 51 minutes, and he finished 6th fed, second section, when another pigeon actually beat him in the loft, and he finished high up in the combine. There was only about 20 odd pigeons timed in the federation on the day, so quite a good performance from a yearling.
Tremendous performance, Mick. And what breed is he then?
His father's a Van Ranroy, the one we mentioned earlier, and his dam is an Alphonse Bowen's pigeon, one I bought at one of the auctions directly from Alphonse Bowen's.
I just noticed he's just got the one white flight, Mick.
That's right, but his size is pretty much the same.
Yeah. A really tremendous pigeon, Mick. We'll perhaps have to have a look at his father in a few minutes.
I will fetch his father out then.
Thank you. So this is the father to the Paul section winner then, Mick?
This is the one. This is the one that cost me £10 carriage from Ponderone.
And this is the Van Wanroy cock.
That's the Van Ranroy cock. I actually broke him out as a yearling, as a 2-year-old, and he went a bit haywire, and he ended up in Rotterdam, which ain't bad for a pigeon that's never been out in his life.
Came back from Rotterdam via Southampton, was it, you told me?
He joined a fishing vessel, which came to Southampton, and an ex-fancy picked him up, and duly reported him, and he was back within a few days.
Again, a very short back wing. A medium-sized to small pigeon, Mick. He's not a big pigeon at all, is he?
No, not a big pigeon. I don't like big pigeons. I think it's very difficult for them to condition them for the longer races.
And apart from the section winner, has he bred any other good pigeons?
There's 1 or 2 promising looking pigeons, but in his first year I didn't breed a lot from him because he's a blue check. And I like the red uns, and I was a bit more colour conscious.
But now you're going to get plenty off now, I would think.
I've got 25 of his offspring in the pen. That's children and grandchildren in my young bird team this year.
Really?
So I'm looking forward to next year.
I would think so. At the moment, Mick, we're in the middle of the young bird season. Now, young birds to you, is it just a case of educating the birds, or do you try to go all out to win young bird racing?
I don't try and win any young bird races, and I just like to educate them. It's all a case of getting them back from the race in order to send as many as you can to the national young bird races. And then you've got more for next year. The pigeon's only young once, he's got another 6 seasons ahead of him.
So when do you start training the young birds then, Mick?
This year, I've done something probably a bit unconventional. The first week before the race, they were trained and they were only given a 10-mile toss at for the second toss, and they went about 5 or 6 times, and then they went straight into the first race. But I did have some later pigeons who only had 4-mile tosses, and they went straight into Bath, which is 100 miles, and none of them nighted out, and their performances flying times have improved every week.
And did you lose many of those first couple of races, or?
Not in the races, but in the training when they went to the 14-mile toss. For the first time, I actually lost about 4 or 5. But that's not bad out of 50.
No.
But you might as well lose them now as opposed to sending them to the race and not getting your money's worth.
So do you train the young birds in the basket? Do you basket train before racing commences?
I have done in the past, but I don't think it really matters. Farmers told me that an animal instinctively will find water, so when they're in the basket in the trainer, they'll soon learn, find out what the routine is.
And when do you exercise your young birds? Obviously, if you're letting the widowwood cocks out morning and evening, when would the young birds go out?
You just have to get up early and let them out in the morning at night time, but while I'm racing I don't really put a lot of importance on letting them out in the morning, as long as they come out at night time.
So really, whilst the old birds are racing, it's just a case of fitting the young birds in.
That's right.
In and on.
They're second place.
And have they been flying well around home? Do they exercise well?
They haven't this year, but I think I put it down to too many beans. I've added a few more bits of variety corn in there, and the flying has improved.
So what do you actually feed the young birds in? Are you feeding a lot of beans to them as well?
A lot of tick beans. 6 parts of beans, 1 part peas and 1 part maize. That's what it was, but it was a bit too heavy, so I've added a bit of wheat and barley to it.
And how often do you feed them? Is it morning and night? Or?
They're morning and night feeds, and they have in the morning a full feed until there's beans left over in the trough. So that's when they've had enough.
As much as they can eat in the morning?
And the same at night.
The same at night as well?
And I never have no trouble trapping them.
You don't?
No. The system is they're either out flying or they're in the pen. And as soon as they're flying and kitting up, I actually liberate them, go inside the pen, close up all the traps, or open them, whichever the case is, and fill the troughs up to what I think they will eat roughly. So the first birds in get all the tidbits. Then after a few weeks they soon learn what the system is, and no sooner do they hit the pen than they're diving in. And they're never left to sit around moping about. There's no need, it just creates bad habits.
And when they come back from a race, Mick, do they get the tick beans again, or do you give them something a little bit lighter?
No, I just give them the wheat and the barley, and a bit of red band mixed in.
And is that the same for Sunday as well, or are they back on the tick beans?
No, back on the tick beans as soon as you can Sunday. If it's an easy race, it's only like flying around after a training toss. To these long distance pigeons anyway.
And when you train the birds, Mick, do you ever train late at night to try and get them to perhaps fly when it's a bit darker?
No, I think if a pigeon's got it in him, it'll come out. You can't put in what's not there. So experience in the race will sort all that out. Try and get the training tosses as early as possible, and if they make a mistake, they've got more chance of getting in before it's too late.
And what direction do you train the young birds? Do you try and get them on a dead south line all the time?
I take them wherever's easiest. It doesn't really matter to me. It matters to me where they go. When a pigeon's up at 4 or Saint is, he doesn't know which direction he's been chucked up in. He just knows which direction he's got to go.
So it's just a case of getting them fit and educating them.
So if the pigeon's not fit, you've lost one part of what you need to be a winner. So it's all about getting him fit.
And again, we spoke before, do you give any dosing treatments to these young birds? Have you dosed them at all?
No, they're not treated for nothing. No worms.
Nothing at all?
No fleas. I've just left them as they are. Completely natural.
Yeah. And when you wean the young birds, Mick, have you any particular special methods for that?
Chuck them in the pen, forget them. And I'll check them about 9 o'clock at night. And if one hasn't eaten anything at all, then I'll hand feed him a few beans. But if he continues to do this, then I'll just leave him and he'll have to eat. The fleas eat or die.
Yeah.
And this is from about 18 days to 21 days.
So it's strong treatment, it's survival of the fittest.
That's right, and they eat the beans, they're on the beans. The first feed might be a bit of small stuff to get their appetite going and settle them down. But after that it's beans, and it's just a tray of beans, there's nothing else in there.
Now, with your young bird team, Mick, do you ever pick out any youngsters to put in the stock loft?
No, well, you end up with plenty of races that you could stop. Pigeons that get injured, it's well bred, so what's the point at this stage of the game? you may as well race them. You might be putting a fantastic winner in the stock loft and losing out. And at the end of the day, it's all about finding that winner.
Do you stop any young cocks at say 100 miles, which seems to be the thing to do these days? I don't know.
No, not particularly. I like them to have as much experience as possible, and it's only the molt which determines what happens.
Now, I know that the Midland Nationals and the Big National are two races that you'll be sending to later on.
That's right,
in the month. Do you have any particular candidates do you choose any particular candidates now?
Well, I've already been through them all to check the stage of the molt, and I wrote it down next to the pigeon, because we've got a Guernsey race coming up this week. So any which are going to be too far advanced, i.e. dropping the last 3 flights for these national races, which are in good fettle now, I'll send to this Guernsey race, and they'll be finished then. They won't go again till next year. So you've got the experience.
You say the last 3 flights, Mick.
Yeah.
Is that something you're pretty strict on? You don't send young birds when they're molting the last 3, is that right?
That's right. I think they find it difficult to fly, and these races aren't easy. So what's the point in giving them another handicap?
Yeah. So that's the only thing that's stopping them. If the pigeons are not fit or they're on the last 3 flights, then you wouldn't consider sending them to the Nationals?
No, they wouldn't go. Or the other case is if they're falling apart in the molt, and you can see that they're struggling. If you watch them on a Saturday come, you can see that pigeon is falling apart. You can see it's very difficult for him to fly. And over that long time, I mean, it could be anything from 6 hours up to 12 hours flying time, depending what sort of race it is, and you can't expect a half healthy pigeon to do it.
No, it's got to be 100% fit.
That's right.
So do you race all the young birds every week?
They do, yes, every week. They don't fail. If they're night out and they're very, very tired, I might not send them. In the past, but this year I've tried sending them, but it's to no avail. But perhaps then they'll keep nighting out with the duffers anyway.
Yeah. Do you add anything to the water? Any tonics to perhaps stimulate the young ones a little bit? Or?
On a Saturday they just have crushed fresh garlic, again just to stop them drinking too much water. But on a Monday morning they'll have Johnson's pigeon tonic, much more diluted than actually what's stated on the bottle. And then on a Monday afternoon they'll have abiform in the water, again very, very diluted. It's miles too strong for what they put in. They only want a little bit, just to keep the vitamins up and the salts.
So that's Johnson's tonic and abiform.
That's right, nothing else. And then they don't bother then, and just let them get on with it.
So is that just the beginning of the week, you say, or?
Just the Monday. And occasionally I'll do it in the week. It all depends how I feel. If I feel like I'm bothered, then I'll do it. Yeah. There's nothing specific.
And basketing day for most of these inland races being a Friday, do you fly them out on a Friday?
I do and I don't. It all depends what the weather's like. But they have a reduced intake on a Friday. Something like put an ounce of widowwood corn in the morning and leave it in the trough till dinner time. Then it's removed and that's it then.
So they haven't got the tray of beans there on the Friday?
No, not on a Friday. Something nice and light, just to stimulate them and not too heavy when they're racing on the Saturday.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered young birds then, Mick.
Well, I do something slightly different with the young birds. I actually split the team into 2 teams. I've got 2 lofts, and the cocks go in the one side and the hens go in the other from the first race to the last race. And I stop the pairing up, which I find hinders and quite often spoils the hens, because they'll lay the eggs or get broken, they'll lay again, and it's just not worth it. You may as well keep them separate.
So you don't like young hens to lay eggs then?
Well, it doesn't really make any difference, but they lay too frequently. And this is what I did last year, and I think the results last year speak for themselves in the 2 nationals. So yeah. I'm sticking to that.
So let's just recap on that. You've got 2 separate lofts.
That's right.
Or sections. You've got cocks in one and hens in the other.
They don't start off that way. I put the different ages in the one, and then when they're flying I'll put the next round and so forth in the other.
Yeah.
And then I'll split them up.
And on a Friday do you let the cocks and hens mix together?
I tried it this year, but the cocks, I think there's such advance in the molt that they weren't really interested, so I haven't bothered.
No.
And I found that after a week the cocks go in their own pen coming from the race and the hens go in the other, and they don't mix up very much.
Right, yeah.
So
now, are they exercised separately? Or
yes, they're exercised separately, yes.
So it's 2 teams out there.
Another 2 teams, so it's extra work again.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth it in the end.
You've always been prepared to put the work in the past anyway. Like.
Well, that's it. If you don't put it in, you don't get it out.
So talking about hens, what about your widowwood hens?
Well, my widowwood hens are unconventional again. They haven't got an aviary. They just have a grill floor and they've got bee perches. But they have a tray of beans and a full feed in front of them more or less all the time.
So you've got the hopper of beans in front of the widowed hens?
That's right. But if they're wasting a lot and chucking it out, then I'll take it out, feed them in the morning and feed them at night. But they have a full feed. They're never broken down.
So there's none of this depurative for your widowed hens, then?
Only might be mixed in with the beans just to give them something extra.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all V perches and a grill floor, then?
That's right, yeah.
And do you get many eggs? Do they get many eggs during the season?
None at all.
None at all?
None at all. My secret for that is, if you have a pair of pigeons paired up in there, not necessarily rearing, but sitting and incubating as normal, all the hens want to pair to that cock. And he probably gets round and he treads one or two, but because there's so many in there, he never actually picks any out because he's got his own hen. And they all want to pair to him, so they all stop marrying. And on a Friday and a Saturday, I actually found that they were very, very fierce and merry, and there was none refused their cocks. Yeah. Whereas beforehand, towards the end of the season, it's very difficult, and you have to keep giving them extra barley, and I'm sure it doesn't do them any good.
Yeah, yeah. So, just to recap then, you've got a pair of pigeons paired on the floor then in the widowed hen section,
right, yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
And the other hens, I don't suppose they don't want to go down on the floor because...
Well, I think they go down to the cock, and he treads them probably. I don't really pay any attention, but I know on a Friday, on a Saturday, especially a Saturday, which is what counts, they're really merry as anything, and they're jumping all over the cocks, which is what he's
just what you want. Yeah. So, do you exercise the widowed hens?
I haven't this year, but I'm building a trap for them, and I hope to exercise them next year. Last thing at night.
Last thing at night, you're up to let them out and get them back in.
That's right. And if there's any that I did want as racers, I could perhaps put them in the race team later on, start them on.
Do they get plenty of baths during the season?
Try to give them one once a week. I actually put the bath inside the pen. It doesn't make any difference if it gets wet. It soon dries out. And
one or two of mixed better pigeons. He's got a pair to show us here that the Kellen's pair have bred tremendous winners this time. The good cock won Saints last year is off this pair. Perhaps if we can have a look at the hen first.
Yeah. This is a hen. Supposedly Jerome Callum's, but if you actually look in the pedigree, they're actually made up of different pigeons. So I don't actually place a lot of emphasis on the breed. But she's a Belgian rung pigeon from Jerome Callum's loft.
And you bought this from where then, Mick?
I bought these from Wrigley and Mallow at Rudesley. They've got lots of pigeons and they spend a lot of money on pigeons. And I bought a batch of 6 from them, went out to this batch of 6, turned a very, 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 very good cock. So I went back last year to buy a sister to him and actually seen the parents and asked him if he'd like to sell them. And he offered me for a price which I thought was agreeable, so I actually bought the pair, which really I think is very, very cheap. Yeah. Well, I'm going to disclose it on the video, but it's quite a cheap.
Can I have a look at the hen then, Mick?
Yeah.
So this is bred, how many prize winners then?
Well, she bred winners that they sold. We don't actually know how many there is. I've got 1 or 2 good ones here, and the first pair off from this year I sold to a friend of mine, and in its first race it won first fed North Staffs Federation 9,113 pigeons.
That's a tremendous number of pigeons.
That's right, and that was a hen that won it, not a cock.
That's out of this particular
out of this
hen?
pair, yes.
Yeah. And that's be from what, 70 miles perhaps?
That was a 70-mile race, yeah.
And another son of this hen won St Santees, is that right?
That's right. He won the Saints race last year, and his son in turn won it this year, flying 5 minutes faster than he did. But his son was one better, the fact that it was a yearling.
So these so-called sprinters have won at 500 miles?
Well, that's right. They were bought for sprinters, but a lot of the national flyers have cottoned on that these are pretty good at the distances, and they're flying them at distances. And I actually believe that Howard Amplet timing him from Paul this year, 660 miles.
So again, it's only a small to medium-sized
That's
hen.
right. She's a very, very small pigeon.
Yeah. And again, a very short back wing.
Yeah.
And it's a narrow step in the wing. There we go. Another nice eye, breeding eye, obviously.
this hen has bred so many prize winners. I actually bought a couple off me myself off this pair, and they have both been first to the loft in about a couple of races this young bird season. But I'm certainly looking for these to get the distance, as Mick has proved that they can fly the 500 miles.
Okay then. Okay then, Mick. We've looked at the hen. Can we have a look at the
This is a
cock
cock that she's been paired to mostly, but I have broken them up, which a lot of people wouldn't do, and paired them to different pigeons.